What's going on, Steelers Nation? Good morning. Good morning. We are going to preview the Steelers Jets game per usual. Steelers coming into this one 4-2. Jets coming into this one 2-4. Both these teams been in the news a lot over the past, week or two for various different reasons. Steelers making a quarterback change. Going to see Russell Wilson under center on Sunday night. Of course, the Jets been in the news a lot. Firing Robert Saleh, new head coach on an interim basis, and then also making change at play caller, trading for Devontae Adams. So this could be a matchup with a lot of eyes on it, especially being in prime time. Excited. It's going to be at home too, so it's going to be a cool matchup. I have a lot of interesting things that I've kind of discovered just throughout like film study, look at the numbers, all that stuff. Want to talk through some key matchups per usual with you guys. Just before we get started, please make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Final score predictions, anything that you guys can foresee happening. Drop those in the comments. I always enjoy going back and reading those. So before we get into kind of just like the matchups, I want to go over a little bit of the injury report stuff for the Steelers. No Nick Herbig this week, still recovering from that hamstring injury. No Zach Frazier as well. Looks like Ryan McCollum's going to start at center. McCollum's a guy without a lot of NFL experience, hasn't really played in the last couple of years, played a couple of snaps last week, was on the field for that Najee Harris long touchdown run. I thought his film last week was what you'd kind of expect from a guy like him coming off the bench. But Frazier, I think I've done it enough justice on this channel and just like on social media, but I really think that Frazier was playing at an incredibly high level. I'm glad that the injury isn't more serious than it is. It sounds like he has a chance to be back after the bye week, which is massive. But I just think Frazier's been I think he's been their best player offensively, which is absolutely insane to say about a rookie center, but I really think that he's been playing at that high level. So, got some more offensive line turnover. That's kind of been the story of the season. They've kind of been rotating guys in and out throughout. It's just, part of the attrition aspect of the sport, I guess. Other guys, Cordero Patterson's still out. Roman Wilson's questionable. He popped up with a hamstring and was limited the past 2 days. Will he play? Will he not? I don't know. I don't really know that it actually matters a ton either, at least from my vantage point in terms of the outcome of the game. Montravius Adams banged up with a knee injury. He's listed as questionable. He was limited yesterday, Friday. Knee injury stuff scares me a little bit. Alan Saunders, our beat writer at SteelersNow.com, said that it was a little bit troubling just seeing it, but we don't really have any more details. I'm sure we'll probably hear something made before game time. But from the Jets' perspective, they are down a couple key players. Michael Carter, who is their really, really good nickel corner, is out with a back injury. He was 3 straight DNPs. They listed DJ Reader, who's their other corner opposite Sauce Gardner, as questionable too. Reader's a fantastic player, man. I actually think he's been one of the best corners in the league, at least that I've seen this year. They just absolutely fantastic technique. He's a guy who's a smaller dude, but is always in the right position, excellent feet, excellent eyes, really hard to create separation against him. He's had 3 straight DNPs with a groin injury. They listed him as questionable. I would assume that means I don't think he's going to play, but I don't know. It just feels like that's highly unlikely, but we'll see. Tyler Conklin sounds like he's going to play too. He was a full participant on Friday. They listed him as questionable. He's their kind of tight end one guy, but those are kind of the main injuries for the Jets. I want to kind of get into some things. I guess we can start with the Steelers offense. We can start with that just because it's Russ's first game. Obviously, in terms of how the offense is going to change, I don't know that you're going to see much change just in terms of the way that they attack through the air. I think the big thing is going to be, I think that you're looking for Russ to provide some stability to the play action passing game, maybe lean into that a little bit more. He's been a guy who's operated under center more in his career than a guy like Justin has, even dating back to college. So that's something he's more comfortable with. I think that's something that they'll lean into, try to create some explosives over the top. I will say this Jets defense, very good about keeping a lid on explosive plays. It's just really difficult to, move the ball down the field. They're tackling is probably their one way that you can kind of get after them, but it's really tough to pass the ball outside the numbers against this unit, just because of the amount of talent they got on the outside. Of course, I already mentioned DJ Reed. I think he's a fantastic player, maybe one of the most underrated players in the NFL, just in terms of the amount of love he gets on social media. But Sauce Gardner, they don't travel him a lot. I don't know if that'll change this week if Reed is not if Reed's not able to go, but he's definitely a guy that could potentially travel with a guy like George Pickens. Sauce, he's honestly better from an off alignment, but he can play man. He can play zone. He's has excellent spatial awareness. He likes to get his hands on. He's tough to create separation against. Really long corner, has that recovery length kind of aspect. Even if you think you got to step on him, like he has the arm length to kind of get his hands back in there and rake the ball out. He's a really tough corner. The only thing that I think with Sauce is he's been flagged a decent amount for penalties. They've been flagged a lot in general, the Jets have, but a lot of those have just been like PI. I feel like the officials have been calling them pretty tight. I went back and, I've watched them a couple times live. I went back and watched like 3 games this week too. Seems like the officials are calling them pretty tight. Maybe that's like a reputation thing. Some of the opposing coaches going up and, asking the refs for some calls pregame. Watch number 1, watch these guys. But he's a physical guy. So I don't know. You can't just completely avoid him on that side of the field, but it is difficult to pass the ball outside the numbers against this unit. So I also went back and watched Arthur Smith played the Jets last year. I just went back and watched like kind of some of the ways that he was trying to attack this Jets unit. They only put up 13 points. They had a couple untimely turnovers too. Didn't move the ball like extremely well, but they did some different things where I was just trying to see like how he might attack this group. Last year, he leaned into some like trip sets. They like to get Kyle Pitts, who is, one of their top playmakers in Atlanta, try to get him as the number 3 to the trip side and try to work him on some outbreakers, trying to get them matched up. Just from a coverage contour perspective, the Jets, they play a lot of quarters, play a lot of cover 6, so quarter, half, that type of stuff. And then they will play some man coverage as well. So like those are kind of like the things that you're going to see a lot of. They don't play a lot of cover 2. Like I said, they're below the league average in terms of, cover 3 as well. So just their safeties too is another thing that I would like to potentially point out. They got a guy, Ashton Davis, in there at safety. I think that's maybe they try to take some double move shots, maybe off like a dig and go or something like that with the quarters looks, try to create an explosive play early in the game to try to get Russ into a rhythm. But I think, the ways that they move the ball in the air will probably be pretty similar. Try to lean into some of the stuff that Russ is comfortable with. The thing that I'm kind of curious about is like the run game. If you watch the Jets, Bills, Monday Night Football game in primetime last week, the Bills really got after him in the run game. Ray Davis, their rookie tailback, stepping in for James Cook, was able to run pretty much all over them. And they did it a number of different ways. They got on them a little bit with 12 personnel stuff. They were running duo. Duo is kind of like where the running back's just like reading the mic and just kind of, if he declares, sometimes it'll bounce. They were running that a lot to Sauce Gardner's side, kind of making him tackle. He didn't tackle very well, so they just kind of kept doing it. They had a couple really nice runs on that concept. But the best thing they did was they kept running mid zone to the weak side. And that's kind of like, if you listen to the channel, you subscribe for a long time, y'all know like that's Smith's like favorite run concept probably. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll put 2 tight ends on the right, run mid zone to the left, and try to get after teams in that regard. And the Bills had a lot of success on that. I remember a 15-yard run in the red zone. And then I also remember at least like one more 12-yard run and I think a 6 or 7-yard run. So they were really good about that. One thing I will tell you about the Jets, they are playing a lot of snaps with Javon Kinlaw on the field. Javon Kinlaw, former first-round pick for the Niners. He cannot defend the run. So that's just something to watch. I mean, he's getting just absolutely detonated off the ball. On one of those mid-zone plays in particular, I think that the double team ended up driving him like 6 yards off the ball, and they were able to create like a huge cutback lane. I think it was Todd Johnson on that play. But yeah, he can't defend the run. I like Quinnen Williams. I've always thought he's a fantastic player. Even I loved him coming out of college. I think everybody did, but I don't think he's even defending the run at the level that I'm used to seeing him play. But I did go back and watch some of the pass rush snaps for him. They are doing some different things with him. He just hasn't had like an overly productive season for his standards. But I would just watch out because the way that Saleh and these like Niners guys like to play, they like to play with these like wide nines. So it's difficult to run the ball like outside to the perimeter. It's difficult to get outside their edges. But one of the things that they were doing a little bit, they did it against the Niners, I believe. They put Quinnen Williams in a 3rd down situation over the right tackle. So they have been like match hunting him a little bit, like matchup hunting. And what I only say that is because like the Steelers have a right tackle and they have a new center, and then they have a right tackle who's not playing very well right now. So just keep an eye on that. Um, Something to definitely watch for. I think because of the struggles of their like front this year, just in terms of defending the run, I think it's made life difficult on their linebackers. I think they have a good linebacker group. Quincy Williams is a guy that's broke out in recent years. Of course, like CJ Mosley, everybody's familiar with him just from his days in Baltimore. Like really smart player at the mic. Even Sherwood's been playing pretty solid ball too. But like Michael Clemens hasn't been defending the run well at all. I think Will McDonald, like he's a guy who has a good amount of sacks. He's been able to create some edge pressure for them off the edge, but like he's just really light. He's a guy who isn't necessarily going to be a huge run defender in general. Like I said, so that's kind of the way that you want to get after this team. The Jets come into this one ranked 27th in rushing success rate allowed. Like the Steelers are kind of built like the way that they want to play ball is run the football. You have to be able to run the ball in this group. If you don't run the ball, it's going to be really difficult, regardless of the Jets missing their two top corners, just because that just plays into what they do really well. From a pass rush perspective, they are top five. They are top five in sacks. They're fourth in sacks with 20. And then you just look at like quarterback pressure rate. They're also fifth in pressure rate as well. I mentioned like Will McDonald. He's been like kind of the guy. McDonald has played a good amount over the right tackle. They've also used him in some unique situations with like a spy. I don't necessarily think you'll see like that this week as well. But McDonald's a guy, really heavy speed guy, very bendy off the edge, likes to win on the outside track, does have a spin move. So, he's probably like the number one guy that you're looking at taking care of there. I'm trying to make sure there wasn't anything else that I wanted to highlight with the Jets defense. That's pretty much it. We can talk about the Jets offense too. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers got off to a slow start this season. Like he's probably not playing like the level of ball that I think a lot of people are accustomed to with Aaron Rodgers. But just like watching him play, like watching him throw the ball, like his arm still looks very much intact. The amount of like revolutions on the ball, he throws one of the tightest spirals, if not the tightest spiral I think I've ever seen in my life. Rodgers obviously has the super quick release. He's got kind of the wonky type of footwork, just the way that he maneuvers in the pocket. Some of the things I love about Rodgers, though, just like he plays with incredible like pace on his drop. Like everything is just so smooth in terms of he just understands like how to play on time in the pocket. You just look at that, the numbers kind of reflect that as well. Just in terms of like time to throw and things like that. I think he's third in time to throw, like quickest time to throw this year. Yeah, third at 2.55 seconds. Just when I was watching this offense over the first like couple games of the season, it felt like very static, not using any motion, no play action. It's just basically him getting back in the gun, doing a lot of things that he was doing 12 years ago or whatever in Green Bay. NFL's just changed since then. It's a lot more difficult to play that style of ball, especially if you don't have the dudes on the perimeter to do it. But last week they did mix in like some more motion, some more play action, some different stuff. But they really like to get five out in the pattern, rely on Rodgers to kind of be this like supercomputer in the pocket, get the ball out quickly to absolve some of the struggles of their offensive line. Now, where the Steelers, I think, have an advantage is like even though Rodgers is getting the ball out extremely quick, the Steelers are going to have the advantage off the edge. Morgan Moses at right tackle versus TJ Watt. Like I said, I don't think TJ is going to get chipped as much as he has been in recent weeks, which is probably music to his ears. You look at the Steelers that come into this one 16th in pressure rate. They are in the top third of the league in sacks as well. But I think that this could be a day where, TJ makes a splash play or two, just because like they are going to probably give him more one-on-ones than he's seen really since the season opener against the Falcons. The other thing is Alex Highsmith, getting him back. That's pretty big. He's missed the last couple games. Tyron Smith is the Jets left tackle. They got a bunch of old dudes. This is pretty old offense on the Jets side of the ball. But Tyron had a pretty good season with the Cowboys last year. He just does not look like the same player to me on film. He's already given up, I think, 5 sacks. He looks really, really stiff. Like he's really struggling to move. He's given up 5 sacks, but it's actually 6 because they had another one called back last week that he lost on. Really, any type of outside track move, it just seems like he's really struggling with. Any type of like just speed, 2-hand swipe. He lost a couple reps like that last week to AJ Epinesa, I think. But it seems like he's really struggling to move. So like that's something that Highsmith, especially if you're not going to blitz a lot and you're going to rely on, your front four to get pressure. I think that that's something that Haskell's going to have to take advantage of, especially, if they are sliding the protection to TJ in some of those 5-man protections. But this could be a huge game for Alex Haskell. I said my bold prediction on the afternoon drive was that he was going to finish with at least 1 sack. I think that that's going to come true. So that's kind of the way you want to get after this team. They don't run the ball extremely well. It's mostly like a zone-based running scheme. They will do some duos, some different things. They haven't been very good out of 12 personnel this year at all. I think they're going to lean into more 11 now that they've acquired Devontae Adams, which we'll talk about. They'll run some duo. I think they've got 2 talented backs. I've always been a fan of Breece Hall, just the way that he can impact the game, not just as a runner, but as a pass catcher. Braylon Allen, I was a little bit lower on than the consensus, but I think he's a pretty talented player. He's just a really young dude. But this offensive line, I think the Jets' offensive line is really an area where I think they just kind of tried to patch things up a little bit before the season. Going out and get Tyron and just different things. I think it's just a really difficult way to live. But we'll see. I think the interior's been okay. Like I said, they got a lot of vets over there. Elijah Vera Tucker was a dude I loved coming out of college. So, they got a bunch of vets. We'll see. I think the Steelers have the advantage up front like they do against most teams. Talk a little bit about just Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's I think he's leading the NFL in targets right now. They've just been force feeding him the ball. The connection between him and Rodgers hasn't been very good. If you ever watched Rodgers play, he likes to use a lot of signals. You got to be like basically in sync with where he's thinking against different coverages. There's a lot of ad lib type stuff. And they just haven't been on the same page. But Garrett Wilson, extremely quick in and out of his breaks, pretty good route runner, can make some spectacular catches, very, very dangerous once he gets the ball in his hands. One of the things that Rodgers likes to do, and this is something to keep an eye on just based on how the Steelers have played this season, if you get off coverage, Rodgers likes to, if he's under center, he'll just pop straight up and throw the ball out. It's called like smokes or keys or whatever. That's just particularly interesting to me because of how good Garrett Wilson is after the catch. And Joey Porter Jr. is out there, and he hasn't tackled extremely well this season, or really last year for the most part either. So that's just something to note. You can get on Garrett a little bit if you can get your hands on him. He's a difficult dude to get your hands on, but if you do get your hands on him, play strength is not his calling card. Like you can kind of knock him off the routes, kind of disrupt the timing, especially like when you're wanting to live in that 5-man protection world. Everything's got to be on time. So if you can disrupt the timing a little bit with him, like you can get after this offense a little bit. It's going to be more difficult to do that now with Adams in the fold. Of course, Rodgers have a huge history of, spectacular playmaking, that duo just dating back to Green Bay. When I was studying Adams, when the Steelers were kind of in that trade running and just different things, it looks like he's probably like 85 to 90% of like what we're used to seeing from Devontae Adams. I don't think he's as explosive out of his breaks as he used to be, which is, expected. He's 32 years old. But Adams, route running technician, understands how to beat press, has a bag of releases, just a fantastic player. He's had some unfortunate drops like early in the season. The thing that I think makes Adams so special beyond just like the route running stuff, which I feel like everybody knows about, is Aaron likes to throw, like the routes that Aaron really likes to throw is goes, back shoulders, slants, flats. Like that's really like the essence of like what you're going to see probably on Sunday night. But Adams, just on those back shoulders and the go balls and stuff, like the late hands, like, it's so difficult when you're playing like one-on-one on the perimeter near the boundary if you don't know when the ball is coming your direction. And like he can mask those intentions until the very last moment, kind of contort his body late for the back shoulders, or even on go balls, like he's just running full speed and like he basically doesn't even like move his hands until it's like basically in the breadbasket. And Rodgers has always been really good at those specific throws. So it's going to be more difficult, more challenging to play this offense now that they've got another premier weapon. One of the things they've been doing is like moving Garrett Wilson around a lot in the slot. So I don't know how that'll play. Like if they're going to probably do more of that with Adams, less of that. I don't know. I would assume Adams probably takes most of the snaps at X just because I think that's Devontae Adams. Like he's the X, but we'll see how it looks. Tyler Conklin does some decent things. One of the things I noticed they were trying to do a lot with Conklin, I don't even know if they hit it. I think they hit it once. A lot of stick concepts. Like that's something that I guess like Aaron really likes. But instead of like Conklin just running a stick from the number 3 route, he was running a lot of stick and nods. So watch out for that, especially if the Steelers end up playing a linebacker over him. Peyton Wilson got a young guy. Maybe they try to poke at that a little bit, but this is one of those matchups too. Like, Beanie Bishop is going to be a key part in this one. Like I said, I think the Packers are probably, or Packers, the Jets are going to lean into more 11 personnel in this one now that they've got, I think, the personnel that kind of Rodgers kind of wants. And then that's going to mean Beanie Bishop's going to have to play. He's going to have to cover some spectacular receivers. We'll see what that looks like. One note to note, I made a tweet the other day just about like how predictable, and I've talked about it a ton on here too, but how predictable the Steelers defense has been on third down. It's just exclusively zone coverage. It's exclusively four-man rushes. They haven't blitzed at all. They're not even like doing a lot of disguise stuff on defense. Like that kind of worries me too when you got a quarterback that's basically seen everything. Being so static, like it has its advantages from a defensive perspective in terms of like communication and just like an easy game plan to digest, but it also has some advantages for quarterbacks that have been around a lot while. Same kind of thing I talked about during the Dallas game with Dak in that matchup. But one of the things I want to talk about was Rodgers hasn't been very good against the blitz this season, which is kind of like definitely not the way that you would used to attack Aaron Rodgers, but he's getting blitzed a ton this year. Some of that is skewed because of that Minnesota game. They like run a ton of that like hot quarter stuff, but he just hasn't been very good. They played Denver. Denver got after him. One of the things that Denver and the Vikings were both able to do is like basically do that thing where it's like almost looks like a punt block where you're putting 7 guys at the line of scrimmage. It's a hot situation. Aaron's just making mistakes that I'm not used to seeing him make. Not knowing that he's hot off the backside, not getting the ball out. It's resulted in sacks. I think they at least had one fumble too. And then Aaron threw a pick 6 against the Vikings when they popped out of that same look. So you just look at some of the numbers, like they're almost like startling. I couldn't believe them because when I was watching the film, I'm like, they're blitzing him more than I thought they were blitzing him. But you just look at like total EPA on blitzes this season. Rodgers is 27th out of 30 quarterbacks. The 2 quarterbacks that have been worse or generated less EPA than he has is Will Levis and then Deshaun Watson, who's not a real quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, that I don't know. The Steelers not blitzing at all this season. We'll see if that changes. Maybe just like some changeups. Even Buffalo, who's not like a heavy blitz team, got after him with some like 5-man rushes last week as well. He took a couple sacks. I just think like I think the commentary like that I've seen on the live broadcast is like talking about like how well he's moving, and like he does move well for like a 40-year-old, and like when he gets outside the pocket, he can still throw on the run, extremely accurate. I just think the difference is like the quick twitch movements that you're used to associating with Rodgers in the pocket. I don't think that aspect of it, the escapability, the evade part of his game looks the same as it did, even probably 6-7 years ago. But we'll see what it looks like. I'm very interested to see kind of the chess match in this one, like how the Steelers want to play them. If they change things up, I've just been like waiting on like, hey, like there's got to be more to the schematic element of this defense. I know they've been really good by the numbers, but they've also faced like just a ton of like really bad offenses, bad quarterbacks. And then like, I think some of the good play callers, some of the good quarterbacks will be able to get after the defense if it stays as static as it does, or it has through the first 6 weeks of the season. Should be a really fun game to watch. Like I said, prime time. Won't have a recap right after the game, but we'll have one early Monday morning. So probably like 10-ish a.m. or something like that. I'll get the recap out to you guys. Maybe a little bit earlier, depending on when I wake up or when I'm able to get to sleep after work on Sunday night. So I appreciate you guys tapping in with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, turn on notifications. Drop me those score predictions and everything in the comments as well. And I will check you guys soon.